I'm Tom Lips. I'm a judge, and I was a judge in Hamilton County for many, many years. I retired from down in Hamilton County. I had 40 years in when I retired, 6 years ago, and what my background is in, worked in a detention center, worked in probation department, was a court administrator, was a magistrate, and then a judge. And so I've been around for a long time. Definitely a little on the old side, but I do remember back to the days when the Department of Youth Services was first established. So I appreciate you inviting me, Director, and always good to see my old friend Tom Stickrath. When he was a director, we had a close association and a very fruitful relationship. So I'm glad to be here today.
Well, thank you, Judge. I'm Tom Stickrath, Superintendent of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation and former Director of DYS, and I'm just delighted to be here today with my good friend and colleague, Judge Lips, and of course, our great Director, Harvey Reed.
And I'm Harvey Reed, the Director of Harvey Youth Services, and having followed Mr. Stickrath, it's been a very interesting path to go down and trying to make sure that the work that he's done, in his prior tenure here continued, and we've enhanced that. And I worked for Judge Lips for many, many years, from in detention, and then he was my first supervisor when I became a probation officer in the community service program and superintendent detention. So we have a long history together, and he taught me how to do a home visit for supervision of kids on probation. He took me out and took me on my first home visit to teach me how to properly do that. So there's a long history there, a rich history, and he very, very valued as a supervisor, a teacher, and a friend.
So we have you to blame for Harvey?
Yes, yeah, he created the problem that is known as Harvey Reed.
I just told him not to eat the homemade jam that any of the mothers made for him.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I was thinking, walking over here, Judge, and Harvey, about my first association with the judges. I learned very quickly. Of course, I came from adult corrections, 20 plus years in adult corrections, and I really didn't know what I was walking into at DYS when the Governor Taft asked me to come down to DYS. I was appointed or announced on December 1st of 2004 as the new director, not starting until I believe January 1st of 2005. But the second day, on December 2nd, I got a call from a woman at the Supreme Court that said the juvenile court judges are meeting in Canton in 10 days or so, and you have to be there, and you have to introduce yourself and address the judges. And I'm like, really? Why is that? We didn't have that relationship with the judges on the adult side like you do on the juvenile side. And it was the best advice I ever had. I went to Canton. Judge Stuckey hosted the meeting, and I was so warmly received. I was able to outline some of my early vision for DYS, but I'll never forget the warm reception I had from the judges at that meeting and moving forward. And it was shortly thereafter, my second lesson on how critical the judges were to DYS's success. I was very active nationally with the Prison Rape Elimination Act and doing consulting and training around the country. So one of my first acts at DYS was to create a Prison Rape Elimination Act coordinator, Amy asked, and a policy. Well, as soon as I was announcing this, Linda Modry, who we all know, Linda came to me and said, you need to send this to the judges. And again, I'm like, really? The judges are interested in that? She goes, you bet they are. And so again, good advice and a real quick learning for me on just how critical that relationship would be, and one I certainly value today.
I think we've all benefited from the work that collectively that has been done. For me, I think the biggest challenge here was just coming in and just kind of showing people a different way to do things, not following, from the script that was here, just charting new territory, making sure staff knew how valued they were to be part of the process of making decisions, and just really getting back to the true reason why we're here, that kids are different, they need to be treated different, and we truly have to treat them like they're our own kids. And just getting people slowly over time, these last 6+ years, is to just get people to embrace that. And I think a lot of that has been possible because of the groundwork that was done before I got here, which is very helpful.
It is true that the judges, juvenile court judges, are very interested in children, very interested in what happens to the children that they may commit to the department, very interested in the reclaim situation and about getting money and opportunities to do resources in their own communities, but it wasn't always so. Back in 1980, it was really, I think, the turning point, and that's when the Ohio Youth Commission was the predecessor of the Department of Youth Services. And back in those days, the relationship between the Ohio Youth Commission, OYC, and the judges was not good. And we were at some loggerheads over primarily who controlled the time that children would be in the Department of Youth Services, or excuse me, OYC, and how long they would be there, and the conditions of the institutions that the children were placed in. Those were all issues that were central to the judges, and they didn't really feel that the Ohio Youth Commission was responsive to them. So the judges got together, and some of us, I was a court administrator back then, I think, got together with the legislature, and the House Bill 440 was written in 1980 and become known as the Ohio Plan, and it became law in 1981, and it developed, or I guess designated, the Department of Youth Services as the major force in Ohio to look over the children in all aspects, with the participation of the judges. And things changed immediately. Immediately we formed a partnership with the Department of Youth Services. I'm talking about the judges and DYS, and we became a force. And when we were together, we became a force to the legislature and a force to the governor's office, and we got a lot of things done. And that has continued throughout, and we've had a terrific relationship with the directors, Tom Mullen, who was a former director here, and Gino Nalucci-Persichetti, and Tom Stickrath, of course, and Harvey Reed. And so it's been a terrific relationship, and one that has been modeled in other states, but I don't know that any other state has really risen to the teamwork level that the Department of Youth Services and the judges and juvenile court judges have in Ohio.
You know, Judge, the word I heard probably shortly after I came to DYS in terms of that relationship was the symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
And you covered it quite nicely there, the evolution, although I know it wasn't that easy. It was, I know at times, difficult and painful, and it's a real tribute, I think, both to Director Gino and obviously to the judges to make that work. Because it was, as I understand it, at times pretty contentious in some of those early days.
Right.
And you guys knew what the right thing to do was, and persevered, and as you so eloquently described, really developed a very unique relationship that's known nationally. So hats off for the work that was done.
And I appreciate those prior efforts because it made it a lot easier for me. But we continue to have that same relationship with the judges. DYS is in the position that it's in because, you know, we've got the buy-in from the judges. We now have conferences with judges about what to do with young people prior to them sending them to us, which those kinds of things without you guys' efforts in the past never would have occurred. And for them having the trust in us, and we can mutually come to the best decision for the kids that come before them and their communities makes all the difference in the world.
One of the things that I think has happened over the years is that the population of the kids that come to the Department of Youth Services has changed, and their composition of what kids come here. Back when the Ohio Youth Commission, judges could commit any kid even on a misdemeanor. And I even think a little bit before that, you could be sent to the Department of Youth Services even for running away from home with for truancy. Excuse me, the Ohio Youth Commission you could be sentenced to. But the Ohio plan said, no, just felonies. The courts themselves should deal with all misdemeanor youth. And it went further than that because the department said, we will give you the funds we would have spent on misdemeanor youth and the department, and we'll send that to the judges and let the judges deal with the misdemeanor kids. And that even started to filter into the kids that had also committed felonies or low-level felonies and could be handled in the community and became known as reclaim. Reclaim was a seminal kind of situation for what happened with the judges, and back in, I guess it was maybe, I don't know, 1994 or something like that, the population of the kids that were coming to the Department of Youth Services was close to 3,000 kids, and that was the average daily population. Today, I don't know what it is.
Less than 500.
So that is a tremendous drop in the number of kids that have to be held in a state institution. There's a lot of kids that are still being held because there's still crime being committed, but it's a lesser rate. And the kids that are being held locally in treatment facilities, most non-secure. A couple of them are at least semi-secure, but the busting of the gates, so to speak, at DYS was reduced by Reclaim Ohio, I think. In your experiences with Reclaim?
Oh, absolutely, Judge. I mean, and I think you reminded me of some of the conversations I had, probably my last year as director here, 2008, 2009, and Dave Schrute, former deputy director, and I would have these conversations, you know, as we had closed a facility, and you know, which is a very difficult thing to do, as Harvey knows. But we were closing, and we were doing the targeted reclaim and some of the other initiatives. And we used to say, how low can we go? You know, obviously consistent with public safety, because that obviously overrides everything. But you know, given the tools and the assessment tools and the work with the judges and the behavioral health initiatives and the things we were doing, it was like, how low? And we'd say, could we get under 1,000? Do you think we could get under 1,000 youth committed to the state? And I know we always had a goal of reducing that girls population the way that Harvey's done. And so I don't think we ever dreamed that number would be under 500, Harvey, as we had those kinds of discussions. Again, consistent with good community programs and overarchingly good public safety.